Hello, everyone. It is Thursday night. It's 5 o'clock on the Pacific Coast, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 o'clock Central Time, and did I just go backwards? 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 6 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 o'clock Central Time, and 8 o'clock on the East Coast. It is time for Train with the Coaches, and I'm Coach Jeff, and tonight I am with, as always,
Coach Sherry Ann.
How are you tonight?
I am fantastic. I really am.
This is a show where we talk everything training, running, endurance related, and tonight we were kind of looking around for a topic, and we were a little short on topics. So we asked the team what they wanted to talk about, and we got some feedback. And what was that feedback?
We're going to be talking about cross-training, the benefits of it, why we do it, when you're injured, to have injury prevention, when you get done with a huge event, why do you go into cross-training? So cross-training, all about it.
Yeah, maybe we should start with not just injury prevention, but rehabbing from an injury, because I know people always get concerned when they get an injury at some point in training, and what's the thing to do, and how do you move forward, and some people lose motivation when they get because they think that they can't rehab constructively and move forward, and I think it's for me, I know that's something in my career as a coach that I've run across quite a few times. A freak accident or an overuse injury happens, and all of a sudden your athlete in the 6th week of their 20-week training cycle is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
What's the answer?
Yeah, well, especially when they start to mentally even freak out about it, like, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do? I can't run. Am I going to lose fitness? They start really questioning everything. And so it's key to keep them mentally focused. And that was one of the questions that we had. It was like, when you're injured, how do you stay mentally strong? And I think cross-training is one of the benefits of keeping you mentally strong, because it keeps you focused on an event, whether it may not be, say you're a runner and you do have, a calf injury or hamstring, whatever, you name it, and you can't get out and run, it's hard. So if you give them something else to focus on, swimming or cycling, then they can kind of find something to sink their teeth into. But I think mentally people really struggle rehabbing from an injury.
Yeah, and I think Coach David always says it right, and we probably should put this somewhere on our website and certainly on our team page all the time. Is eye on the prize, and what exactly is the prize, and how do you keep how do you keep focus on getting to where you want to go? If, in fact, the injury is serious enough that it shuts you down for 5 or 6 weeks, and so this A race is now gone, I think you have to quickly make the mental adjustment to, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because it happens. And so what am I, I'm sitting here with a TENS unit on my calf right now. But I have a goal. Now, thankfully, my goal is far enough out that, I can shut this down for a couple of weeks until this calf is where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And doing things like running at 20 miles in the Grand Canyon probably wasn't the smartest thing. But I can shut this down for a week or two now and get this calf 100% because I have plenty of time to go on. So I'm not, but that doesn't happen to some people. Mm-hmm. And for me, what I like to do with the people who I work with is say, okay, well, let's focus on fitness. Let's just get the focus on fitness, and because you can have measurable gains mm-hmm. over the next couple of weeks, and let's see what happens. And I will give them fitness. I will change their fitness structure, and I'll try to find something that will keep them aerobically fit, but I'll give them other fitness challenges. Well, let's strengthen this part of the body. And let's strengthen this part of the body. Let's work on some of these other things to get them strong while we're rehabbing that injured area at the same time with measurable results. Because mm-hmm. one of the things is you can measure results every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize that. The biomechanics and the physiology of it all is your body really doesn't show the improvements until 10 or 14 days out from the day that you do the workout. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I like to do with people.
Well, yeah, and not always. Sometimes you can have just an acute injury for no reason, but most of the time, usually an injury is due to an imbalance or weakness somewhere. So you use that time to correct that imbalance and strengthen what's weak, and you just make that be the focus, and then you come back that much stronger. And just because you end up having to take some time off from running doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose fitness, if you're placing that fitness and doing some other activities. And a lot of times people can come back an even stronger runner after an injury.
Yeah, and I know stories of people who, and I'll tell you a great story because we have a guy who's running Boston this year, Ann Brennan's husband, Blaze, who, I don't remember if it was 2000, had to be 2012. We were training for Boston, and he wanted to run that sub 3-hour race, and at the time his PR was about a 3:23, but he'd never really done any structured training. And about 4 weeks out from the race, we got a pretty serious foot injury. So we diligently jumped into the pool, and we aqua jogged for the last 3 weeks and all the way through taper and right up the race day. We didn't run at all. And he got to Boston, and he ran a 10-minute PR. He went 3:12 or 3:13. Wasn't exactly his goal, but he was still able to achieve a great result because he kept his eye on the prize. He stayed focused. We addressed what we could address in that short period of time, and then after we shut him down and said, okay, let's get this fixed completely and come back to where we're at. But I think you brought up a good point. And one of my pet peeves with a lot of physical therapists are they don't address the source of the injury. And is the source of that injury bad form? Is the source of that injury a weakness on one side of the body? And you said that. We got to look for the imbalance and what's causing the injury, because something's causing an injury, and that's what needs to be addressed always.
Yeah, and so you just focus on that being the time, when you're rehabbing, is making yourself stronger. I mean, it's so much easier said than done, but there's so many positives to rehabbing from an injury, because you are going to come out on the other side stronger. You are. Everybody always does. Everybody I've ever dealt with always does. I personally have when I've had injuries. But when it comes to cross-training from an injury, a lot of it depends on what your injury is and what you can cross-train. So that's the other thing, too, is, say you have an Achilles issue, that really is a challenge, because then you're really limited to what you can do. So cross-training on the front side of an injury to prevent injury, I think is key, especially for people that just run, because I think runners, when they're just runners, have a tendency to have more imbalances than triathletes. These triathletes are cross-training.
That's right, and that's a great point. And so many runners don't want to lift weights. and as you said, most runners have more imbalances because the repetition of movement is always one direction. So they're going to have. I can't tell you how many times I've been to trade shows and how many hundreds of people and how many clinics I've done where the first thing I've said to someone is, okay, bend your knees, and I see all that wobble start to go on. And I say, and I would say that probably 90 to 95% of the just road runners who I've seen in the course of my career, when I say bend your hips, there's a hip issue going on right there. There's a weak hip going on, and there's some kind of imbalance that's starting in the hips. Just had a girl last night, a teammate's sister, who's having some problems, and she's working with one of those paper training plans, and so she asked me if I would look at her. I said, okay, stand in front of the camera, and on Skype, and let's bend your knees. And she bent her knees, and I thought she was going to fall over, and I said, okay, well, here's where the problem starts. And as you said, addressing that source very early on, and if you can work with that source, and if you can start to correct things before they happen, you and I are about to go through, because for those who don't know, that Sherry Ann's about to run a 100-miler next week, and I've been training her for that, and then we have a big goal later on in the year, but we're going to shut it down for a couple of weeks. And in the period of that shutting it down, there's going to be a week or so of just complete, just almost 100% rest to let everything mend up and heal. And then we're going to go after some strength again, and we're going to redevelop some areas and do some strength work to get you ready for the big block of training that will come. And too many people don't think about that off-season preparation, or that in-between season rest and recovery to get ready to rebuild. And I'm losing a little fitness to gain fitness. It's a hard concept to talk to people about.
Yeah. That one is hard sometimes mentally for me to wrap my mind around early on in my career, but the more I do, the more I'm really looking forward to Zion 100, just to kind of see what I'm made of. But I'm also looking forward to the block afterwards of just having it in my rearview mirror and just kind of like letting things be, letting my body like really recoup, and doing some things that I like to do for cross training on a more regular basis that I have kind of neglected because I've been so focused on Zion. But like, I love to rock climb. So I'm going to go rock climb. That will be like let my mind go, let my body, you know, just kind of relax and chill out and just do a lot of rock climbing after Zion. And this kind of goes in line with one of the questions that we had about what do you do after a big event that you've been focused on? Because some people have the post-race blues and whatnot, but it is important to just kind of recoup, reset, let your body really recover, and get into some cross training that you really enjoy. Like we're almost out of winter, but if you like to ski or snowboard, go do that. You know, go do some other things that train your muscles in a different way, and let those muscles that you've been working so hard for so long just kind of be.
Hey, you know, and such a great point, the post-A-race blues. And I think one of the things that happens to people with the post-A-race blues is they're so excited coming out of that big day, and it's automatically, I want to do this next, and they take a week, they have a week that they shut down, you know, to recover and from the big race, and then they get ready and they want to jump right back into it, and all of a sudden they jump right back into it, and it's like, oh, I'm too tired to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it starts from there.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to say to people, okay, look, you know, we're coming up on your big race. I know you're thinking about your next goal, but all I want you to think about is getting through this race, you know, hitting your goal objective at this race, and then resting for a while afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So don't even think about the next goal going in, you know, because you know, we get it every year. What are your goals for the year? And you know, and instead of saying, well, I have this one big goal and I have these little goals working up to it, it's like I got this goal and that goal and that goal, and what happens? That just fries you.
It does.
And
it really does. And it's like that's the thing too, is not only you need to let your body rest, but you need to let your mind rest. I mean, because I don't know about everybody else, but when I train for a race and I get up closer and closer to the race, it's all I can think about. It's all I can think about. And it's mentally exhausting, but it's what I do. It's how I prep, and it's what gets me kind of amped up to race. But you can't do that all the time. It's like it'll blow you up mentally and physically. But yeah, it's important to kind of take a break after an A race. But the post-race blues that I think some people experience is that it was such a high, and they were so driven for so long with following a workout plan, and then the race happens, and they're like, oh, okay, what do I do now? And it's okay to have that, what do I do now? It's okay to just let it be, you know, and then find a goal and start planning and working towards that goal, but just be for a while, especially after an A race. Especially after an A race.
And especially that A race is an Ironman, because it's really funny. I see more people who do their first Ironman suffer from this than people who do their first marathon.
Mm-hmm.
People do that first Ironman and they get done, and at the end of the race they go, oh, well, you know, that was great. It wasn't so hard. And then a couple of days afterwards, they start thinking about what's next, and they think about, oh, it's not going to be an Ironman because that 24 weeks of training is just hell. You know, it's Ironman training that breaks you. It's not the Ironman race itself.
No,
and when you look back, it's like, and I'll tell you, if I could go through our team right now and a whole bunch of people who did first-time Ironman last year or have done first-time Ironman, what they've gone through afterwards has been not, you know what, I don't want to race again, I don't want to do this, I don't want to train again.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
Because that training, and you know, you've done 5 Ironman, and you know the time away from family and the stresses it puts on at home, not to mention the stresses it puts on your body. So you really need to go into that Ironman and almost look at that first Ironman race as a reward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is my reward for the training, and when you finish it, it's like, thank God, and now I'm going to rest. Because almost every person I've ever trained who's done an Ironman has come out of that Ironman with, oh, I don't want to do that. And I actually have some guys who, I have a guy who is a friend of ours who, you know, has done 6 Ironmen. And before the last one, he called me up. He said, this is the last one because I just don't want to do the training again for one after this. So I got to hit my number this time. You know, that's because he knew what he was about to get into and
Mm-hmm.
been there before, and that's a big thing to do. But I think when we go back to the injury part of it, it's, I like to use Mike Federle a lot on the show as a perfect example. When Mike came to me almost 5 years ago, maybe it is 5 years ago now, he just had a serious plantar rupture.
Mm.
He couldn't do anything. I mean, he couldn't run. He couldn't do anything. But what he took very, very seriously for the first 4 months we worked together was his rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
And he realized that everything we did was part of the rehabilitation and a process to make him a better athlete when he could start running. And he really dialed that in. And I think that's what people need to look at going into a rehab period, whether it's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the injury might be. What they need to look at is, okay, during my rehab, I have to keep the focus on becoming a better athlete. Because when I come out of my rehab, I want to be ready to hit it. And thusly, when Mike came out of his rehab at 56 years old, when we finally got done rehabbing and training, he ran his fastest marathon ever. He ran 3:38, qualified for Boston. And and that was because of the diligence that he put in and the focus. I mean, he came out of rehab in incredible shape.
Mm-hmm.
And we went right into a build cycle, and I mean, we'd spent months on the elliptical and cycling, and all the things that he could do and the strength work. And he came out of there, really peaked, really in great shape, feeling good about himself. That's the key. Come out of rehab feeling good about yourself so you can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's huge mental. But okay, so one question I'm sure that is floating around in some people's minds is, what does cross training look like? Like, is it level 1? Is it level 2? Because you're certainly not going at effort, like at high effort. So is cross training, so say if you have a runner. No, let's go with a triathlete that's rehabbing, but their injury keeps them from running. Let's say they have a hamstring injury. They pulled their hamstring. Didn't warm up properly and took off and pulled it. So what does that look like for them? Are they just focusing on bike and swim?
Well, no. The problem with and here's the thing, and you had to bring up like one of the hardest injuries to rehab that there is a hamstring. When a hamstring affects so many different things that go on in the leg, and you really have to do. You can swim. Problem is, depending on how serious the hamstring is, you have to swim with a pull buoy. You have to do all your workouts as pull workouts. I have a girl in Philadelphia who had a very serious hamstring injury last year. She's not a triathlete. She could be because she's an amazing swimmer. We were swimming 3,000 yards 3-4 times a week, just pull buoy, because that was keeping her aerobically fit,
Mm-hmm.
upper body. We were doing a lot of core strength work, and we were doing some minimal strength work on the legs to start the rehab. One of the problems with the hamstring is a lot of people, when they get a hamstring injury, they'll overstretch it to try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't realize, if you have a tear, you have to let that tear knit. And that tear can't knit if you keep pulling it apart. So you almost have to get to the point where that muscle shortens up as it knits and gets stronger before, and you can do that, and you can do light weight work and light strength work to support that, but then you have to go through the process of re-lengthening that muscle again after it's knitted and repaired itself. So, hamstring is a very, very difficult injury not to come back from, but it's Kristen, almost a year now, now she's running back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of time just in the pool, upper body strength work, core work, quad work, strengthening the muscles, the hips, getting everything around that hamstring strong, so to support that imbalance that she had because of the hamstring. So when she came out of that and it was completely knitted, now we could go back,
Mm-hmm.
lengthening it and making it work right. Tough injury, but again, it's it's one of those things. Can you bike? She could bike a little bit, but it had to all be very low zone work, very light resistance. So we were able to keep, specificity is specificity. If you're on a bike and you're a runner, you're going to lose some of that running strength. Bottom line, that's going to happen. But you don't have to lose all of your aerobic conditioning. Cyclists can be pretty aerobically fit athletes. But again, with that nature of the injury, it was just a lot of boring 1 hour, hour and a half, hour and 45 minute So do trainer rides in a very low resistance, and that's killer for a lot of people, as you know.
Yeah.
But again, she focused on it and did it well, and spent the time in the pool. And it was funny, right before the hamstrings race, she said, "I think I'll do a half Ironman this year." She spent so much time in the pool and on the bike. She's like, "I can do this." So that's one of the goals. But
But see, you said something there, and that's what people need to understand is that it has to be slow and consistent, and that's what's going to get you back. And because some people want to rush the process, and it's like you can't. Your body's going to do what your body's going to do, and you have to be diligent about the recovery so that you can come back stronger. Because I think too many people rush it, but it's a lot of slow workouts.
Yeah, people never stop calling me. Yeah, and again, it's we go right back to that thing. We go right back to that thing where rehab is focused just like training is. You have to focus on your rehab, and you sit down with your coach and you say, okay, what's the plan? Because I'll sit down with a person and I'll say, okay, we're going to rehab this. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. And this is what we'll look for. These will be our markers, setting markers along the rehab process and measurement things. And if you're hitting those markers, you might get lucky and hit them before. You might not get lucky and hit them after, but we're going to set these markers. Those are going to be our goals. So have rehab goals. Because that will keep you focused. If you make your rehab helter skelter with no focus and no determination, you're going to lose all interest, and then you're going to sit around on the couch eating Doritos and drinking chocolate milk.
Yeah. Well, and then the injury prevention part of cross training really is, one of the benefits to having a coach, is because there's people listening to this podcast that don't have coaches. And one of the biggest benefits of having a coach is that you have dialogue with somebody that you can say like, I've got this twinge, or I'm really tight today, I couldn't really, you can have a conversation so you can get to the point to where your coach, us, can help you not have that injury. Because, I have people that will email me, gosh, I'm really tight, my legs really hurt, and it's like, okay, we've got to spend some time doing some yoga and really stretching that out, foam rolling, and just making sure that we don't have an injury. And sometimes, a lot of it comes down to the athlete listening, but, and it comes down to the athlete actually sharing what's going on. But us as coaches, like I feel pretty confident that if an athlete comes to me with a situation, I'm like, okay, we're going to prevent this, so let's do X, Y, Z. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's one of the biggest benefits, I think, of having a coach in an injury prevention situation is that you can be like, I got this twinge and I'm not quite sure. But
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I come from the old personal trainer background. And as a personal trainer, what's the first thing we did with every new client we had? We did an assessment because we wanted to see, where they were weak, where they were strong, what kind of training program they needed. If you were a good trainer, you did that. If you weren't, you didn't. But I did that. And you and I have carried that kind of mentality into training runners and triathletes, where we give them a week of assessment when they start. And I would love and I would love for athletes, to just sit down and say, okay, well, if I'm a triathlete or I'm a runner, let's take a look at the physiology of this. Okay, let's go into charts and let's Google a body, the muscles and ligaments and joints, and say, okay, during the course of my 3 events or my 1 event, I'm going to be using this muscle group a lot, and these ligaments and these tendons, and so what do I do to support that? And then you can sit down with your coach, and the coach can say, okay, we're going to be, this will be engaging over and over again, so we need to strengthen this area of the body to support that, to help prevent injury. That's why we lift weights. We don't lift weights to turn you into Arnold Schwarzenegger. We lift weights to support the muscle groups and ligaments and the tendons, strengthen the musculoskeletal system so that your body doesn't break down under these huge stresses of the sport. And I don't think I don't think that enough emphasis is placed on assessing a person's body and really going over them, what they're going to do throughout the course of a training cycle, and what muscles they're going to use throughout the course of a training cycle, and okay, let's talk about how we're going to prepare your body. You've heard me say this on podcasts before. What's the first thing you build when you build a house? And everybody goes foundation, and I say no, the road into the house, because you can't get into the house until you build that road getting in there. And for an athlete, that road into the base or the foundation of your training program is the strength work that you do to develop the muscles and the joints and the ligaments that are going to support everything you do throughout the course of your training cycle.
Right. But even though sometimes there's situations where an athlete will end up getting injured even after that assessment, or get to a point to where it's not quite an injury, but it's on the borderline of an injury, and I know that sometimes it's really frustrating for the athlete, and for me as a coach, it's kind of frustrating for me too to watch an athlete that you've been working with all of a sudden show up with this injury. But it's so important to have that communication so that it doesn't happen, but also just following through with everything. I mean, because even if you're strengthening the muscles, I mean, you also have to do the other part of stretching and really rehabbing after your workouts, because if there's so many runners that are just tight, their muscles are so tight, and it's because they don't take the time to stretch after a workout or roll or eat properly, and it's just their muscles get so drawn up tight, and then it's like it takes a lot of work to get those muscles to loosen up. It takes constant rolling, constant massaging, constant stretching, and that's one of the other things that has to go in with cross training is you have to incorporate strength training and stretching, whether it's just basic stretching or yoga workouts. I mean, that's a huge part of what we do here at PRS Fit is having Bonnie as our yoga coach and prescribing yoga for all of our athletes every week, because it's a huge injury prevention. It's a huge part of our cross training.
Yeah, I think the two best things that happened to the company this year were you and Bonnie. I mean, I think you guys coming into the and because I'll be real honest with you, I don't think I did a training plan last week for any of my athletes that didn't have 2 yoga sessions in it.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of my old timers who hate the thought of doing yoga, are doing yoga, and I'm getting the feedback, And we saw Chris Russell, and most people want to listen to this show know Chris Russell because they listen to his show, and he even posted on the team page the other day, "Thank you, Bonnie,"
mm-hmm.
Because he's doing her yoga stuff now, and he's feeling really, really good. As good as someone who's run 60, I think Chris has run 61 marathons now or something. Feel in his career, but he's feeling really, really good. And even Dane, who wouldn't do yoga to save his soul, is out doing some of Bonnie's yoga workouts a couple of times a week, and they're reaping the benefits of that. And you can reap the benefits of that in preparation for your season, not just during your season,
mm-hmm.
but in preparation for your season. Look, it's an overuse industry. Eventually something's going to happen. And the bottom line is all the things we're talking about tonight are things to help reduce those chances.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always going to be the chance. No one's going to go through a whole career without an injury. If they train a lot, race a lot, and do it for a long period of time, something eventually is going to happen. It's just going to. Your body's going to give out at one point. Something's going to happen. But the more strength, the more flexibility, the more cross-training you're doing, the more varied movement that your body has, the longer you can last without anything serious. And maybe you'll just get a nick or a nag. I mean, crying out loud, I pulled a muscle in my calf walking the dog. I've never had a muscle injury in 47 or 48 years of running. I walked the dog, I pulled the muscle. And probably just because the muscle was tired from the run across the country. And, I'd done a lot of running back-to-back days for all that time. And I probably was just in complete muscle fatigue, and I was walking the dog that day, and I stepped one way, and something pulled. And there was nothing I can do about that. And when those things happen, you have to be in the mindset to say, okay, well, let's get it fixed and let's move on, but let's focus on getting it fixed. And that's why I'm sitting here on the show tonight with a TENS unit hooked up to my calf.
Yeah, usually it's just a telltale sign of a necessary reset button to be hit.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. It's like, okay, wait, let's reevaluate what's going on here because the body's like, hey, hold on, stop,
Yeah.
and let's reevaluate. And so it's not always. It does suck getting an injury, but it's not always bad.
Well, it's not always a bad injury.
No.
And you know what? It's not always bad for you because it might be forcing you, it's your body forcing you to take some time off. You've been fortunate in your career, thus far, you haven't had any injuries. And, knock on wood, we're going to keep it that way because we're coming out of Zion and we're going to say, okay, let's let the body rest.
Mm-hmm.
Probably haven't rested in the last 5 years. And we're going to do that. I mean, this is the person who came out of Ironman, Arizona and was hanging on the rock wall 2 days later. So, but that's not going to happen after Zion. We're going to rest. We're going to let the body shut down a little bit. We're going to let everything repair and rebuild. And I think, and then we'll start, with some additional strength stuff, and then we'll get you back on the rock wall having some fun. But, everyone's just got to be really smart about how they treat their body. Look, you're not professional athletes.
Right.
I almost bet my life that Rennie and Crowe aren't listening to the show tonight. So anyone who's listening to this show, who's going to download or listen to this show, needs to understand that you're not a professional athlete. You don't have the luxury of training and sleeping. Training and sleeping, training and sleeping, training and sleeping. You got to train, go to work, or go to work and then train. Train, chase the kids around the house, or chase the kids around the house and go train. You don't have rest periods during your day, so you have to be very, very cognizant of the rest and the recovery and the cross training that you do through the course of your life.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, and you made a good point there, and I'll eat crow because right after we did the Grand Canyon, I was supposed to take a chill bike ride. And I did take a chill bike ride until like the last mile, I think. And I was out on my mountain bike and I was tooling around with some guys, and they were like, why don't you lead? And of course, if I get out front, I get a little aggressive. And so I did, and I ended up laying my bike down as well as chewing up my hip and my arm. And it was just because my legs weren't as responsive as they normally are. But that day they just weren't because they were still recovering from the Grand Canyon, and I knew it too. I was so unhappy with myself for not doing what I knew I should have done.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening and know that I trained Sherry Ann, I coached Sherry Ann, she got it talking to me that day.
Yeah, I got a swift kick in the tail, and then afterwards, after I got done getting chewed, it was like, so are you okay?
Yeah.
And I am okay, for those of you that are listening and watching.
Yeah. Yeah, so
it's important, but the point I'm making though is it's important to be smart, and to really be proactive in your recovery and your cross training, because I was riding that day to cross train from running and just giving my legs a break from the pounding. But you got to be smart all the way across the board, and really pay attention and be diligent.
Let's talk about some great cross training ideas. And and I always say, what, if you're a runner, learn how to swim and bike.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because triathletes, and I've been doing this for a long time, and by and large, my triathletes suffer less injuries than my runners do, because of the three disciplines and because using different body parts and a lot of different kinds of movements. So if you're a runner, learn how to swim and bike.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a triathlete, well, you know what? Learn how to rock climb. Learn how to do some other things. I mean, there's things that you can do. Find something that looks interesting and do it. And not just as much for the cross training value of it, but for the mental value of it as well. You're gonna have fun doing something. Like after a while, Patty got up this morning and she had to do a pedaling drill and on the bike, and pedaling drills aren't fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you as a runner you can say, well, I'm going to start doing pedaling drills because that's fun cross training. No, because look, you get to a point in your training where it's like, oh crap, I got to go run again today, or oh crap, I got to go swim today. So if you're a triathlete or a runner or whatever it is, pick something outside of the norm.
Yeah.
And make that your fun activity to get away from it, and something that will give you a great cross-training benefit. You brought up skiing before. Skiing is great in the winter, but in the summer, rollerblading, you can rollerblade. There's lots of other things you can do.
I mean, one thing that I like to encourage my athletes to do, especially runners, but triathletes too, because even though you're a triathlete and you are cross-training because you're swimming, biking, and running, everything is still linear, so you're not doing any lateral movements. And one program, as most people know, I'm also a Beachbody coach, so I have the ability to retail a lot of Beachbody products. And one of my favorite programs is the Insanity because it's all plyometrics. There's a lot of lateral movements. And so I'm training muscles that I don't normally train when I'm swim, biking, and running. And I notice it. I notice it big time. Whenever I have to do any kind of movements laterally in training in that cross-training program, I love it because it gets my heart rate up. So there's a big cardio component to it, but I'm training muscles that I don't really hit when I'm swim, bike, and running. So it's finding something that you do like to do, whether it's going to, a boot camp class at the park or going to the gym and doing something at the gym, but it's really training muscles that you don't normally train. But it's also giving your brain a break. Like you were saying, like, oh, God, I got to get down the trainer again, or I got to go for another run, or I got to go stare at that black line in the pool one more time. I'm going to shoot myself. So it is finding different things for not only physical reasons, but mental reasons. But I like to encourage people to find exercises that will train your lateral movement because that will help your stabilizers to make you a better runner, better cyclist, a better swimmer. So I like to encourage that.
Yeah, and runners, it's funny, a lot of road runners, and I was this way for years. I hated running trails because I like to run fast. And obviously you run faster on the road than you do on the trail. And I'd always been a road runner my entire career. I was road running. So I would go to trails and I think, oh, it's so boring. And, sometimes you got to walk. But you know what? Trail running is so good for you because of the lateral movements. As you were saying, there's so many different movements going on the trail. And you know what? When you run on the trail, there's not as much pressure. You can go out and do a trail run. You can say, oh, I'm going to walk up this hill.
Mm-hmm.
And you can walk. You can stop and take a little bit of picture. So it takes a lot of the pressure off you for running from the day-to-day doldrum of being out there on the road and just road training. Get out on the trail. Find a nice place to go, and especially in the summer. They're shadier. They're cooler. You can get on the trail. You can have a good time. If you're shutting it down in the summer, I think, I forget where I read. It was probably one of Lydiard's books. He talked about the Japanese marathon team. They come over to this country very, very early in the winter when they really can't do a lot of running, and they spend weeks in the mountains hiking. That's what they do. They go into mountains and they hike and they hike and they hike because they're building strength, they're strengthening stabilizers, they're getting cardiovascular activity, and they're having fun at the same time. And they're all and they're great runners. And so there's so many different things you can do, anyone can do outside of the norm that can be fun that will actually make the norm better for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love being outside. Get me outside and we'll go figure something out. I don't need too much.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find stuff anywhere, really, to go do. And the nice thing about trail running that you kind of touched on was your stabilizers and your ankles really get a workout. And it's funny because people that normally run road and I send them to the trail, their first complaint, not necessarily a complaint, but they're just like, my ankles are sore. And I'm like, think about all the muscles in your ankle that you don't train when you're running the road. It's like, hit the trails at least once a week. You'll become a much stronger runner. And that way, when your ankle does roll, you'll catch it so much faster because those proprioceptors in your ankle will be so responsive.
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing a clinic one time with Golden Harper, the guy who designed Ultra and one of the founders of Ultra. We were doing a running clinic. And he was talking to the people, and he said, you know what the problem with road runners are? He said they're always afraid to do anything different. He said, when I'm running along the road and I come to like a park or something, and my choice is to stay on the sidewalk and go around the park or cut through the park, he said, I cut through the park. He said, because I get on the grass, and when I'm on the grass, guess what happens? I start to use different stabilizers. Mm-hmm. So even though that's not my plan for the day, that's what happens. He said, if I'm running, he goes, if I'm running something and there's like a big rock in the middle of the road, he said, I don't run around the rock. He said, I run up over the rock. Mm-hmm. Because I use different muscles and different stabilizers. And he was demonstrating it as we were running around Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, because this was at the Runner's World Festival. and we were outside, and he was running up on benches and the side of these little statue things. And he was telling people, this stuff is all so good for you, and it also adds a little bit of fun. And so, think about those things. When you're coming to that grass patch, don't run around it, run through it. If there's some mud there, run through the mud. Lift your feet. Learn how to be lighter on your feet.
And it's okay for your shoes to get dirty.
Someone in the background was just like cringing when I said run through the mud.
I know, that's why I said that.
Yeah, but we have created a trail monster now. I should say that. So
yes.
Yeah, that was a good thing.
I swear, once you go trails, it's hard to go back to the road. I mean, I tell every runner that because they're always a little afraid. And I never really understood that because I've always been drawn to nature and trails. And, I mean, always. It's just been kind of in my soul. And when I tell runners to go to the trails, they're kind of like, they're scared. They're a little timid. Like, I don't know. That looks really hard. And it's like, oh, let it go. Have fun with it because there's nothing that says that you have to do it fast. And you're going to benefit so much from going to the road to the trail, mentally and physically. I mean, trail running is pretty magical.
Really good for your running form, too.
Yeah, because you can't have bad running form running on a trail.
No.
You really can't.
Got to lift those feet. You got to get them down under the center of mass. It's because if you don't, you're on the ground.
Mm-hmm. I was telling one of my athletes that last week because they were wondering about their running form and because they're improving it. And I said, just go hit the trails. It'll solidify it for you, I swear.
Yeah.
Because they're right on that cusp of making that jump to just being having really good form. And
a little inside tip is Alberto Salazar, who obviously coaches Team Nike, he does not have any of his runners run on the road. He said if his marathoners in 100 and 120 miles a week that they put in, if 3 miles of that is on the road, it's from crossing the highway from one trail to the other. That's it. He said he does not train his marathoners on the road. Everything is on the trail because it's so much. He actually said in an interview I listened to with him that had he run on trails in the height of his career, he would have had 4 more years of a running career. Because that's how easier it is on your legs and how much better it is for your joints and your stabilizers.
Well, because when you're running, I forget the number, but isn't it 7 times your body weight?
3 times.
3 times? Okay. 3 times your body weight that you have to absorb when you hit the ground.
Yep.
So why not go to dirt?
Yeah, I've become a trail fan. I didn't used to like trails, and even living in Colorado, my first 15 years in Colorado, I never ran trails. To me, trails were the fire. Yeah, trails were the fire roads that went around the reservoir. That was my trail running, and you couldn't get me to go on a trail because I always wanted to go. It's like and then it was, I'll be perfectly honest with you. The first year I had trail camps was the first year I started running trails. Someone said to me, you should have trail camps up here. And I said, yeah, I should. The trails are probably great, but I don't run trails. And they said, what? I said, I don't run trails. So I went out and ran a trail one day, and I said, wow, this is really cool. And I had a blast. And then I said, wow, okay, well, I'm going to do these trail camps. And then I started running trails all the time. And now
Now you don't even touch the road.
Yeah, now I still like to run on the road, but if my choice is here's a trail over here, the road over here, I go to the trail now.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I'm old, and I'm not fast anymore, so that's the other thing.
Age is just a number.
Yeah,
just a number.
Yeah, just a number that keeps getting bigger.
But I mean, that's really all I have on cross training. I mean, I just think that it's good for people to make sure that they have it in their training plan. If they don't have a coach that is offering it to them, then they should be asking for it. Yeah. And then if they're training themselves, make sure you have it in there. It's imperative because it will help you just become a better athlete, help you prevent injury. And then if you are rehabbing from an injury, you really have no choice but to cross train. That's the only way that you're going to keep your fitness up so that you can come back. And then cross training after a big event, just letting yourself kind of be and letting your mind be, let your body be, and just kind of do what feels good that day for a good couple of weeks. At least that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you need it. So what's coming up this weekend? We got anything big coming up this weekend? I know we have Kelly Mose on our team is running her first marathon. And, a lot of people on the team are racing. It's that time of year.
Yeah, season is open and it's rolling, and so I love it. I love now it's like watching people and staying alert and keeping an eye on them and seeing how they do. And
yeah.
I'm not sure on everybody yet for this weekend, and so I'll look at all that tomorrow.
Yeah, this is the time of the year where it gets really stressful for us. I know. I have you running a 100-miler next week, and folks, next week we'll be doing our show live from Zion.
Yep.
Jen and I will both be in Zion. I'm going out there to crew her for her 100-miler, and Coach Christina will be there as well. I don't think she'll be in for the show, but she'll be out there with us. Gaines got a 50-miler coming up, and then the week after that is being a runner and a runner at heart. And even though I train triathletes, I love my triathletes, but being a runner at heart. The Boston Marathon is just a couple of weeks away. And I actually start to feel the stress right along with my athletes at about this point in time when we're rolling into getting close to that first taper week and we're rolling through that. I start to feel their stress, and I'm already looking at the extended forecast for Boston that day. Because for me, Boston really kind of kicks off the racing season.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest running event of the year. And then, there's a couple of marathons after that we'll have people doing, and then the triathlon season starts. So Boston really is, to me, is really the mark of spring racing season.
Mm-hmm.
and the preparation for the big stuff that starts to happen in the summer. Just like every year, New York is kind of my benchmark for the end of the season. I so look forward to the New York City Marathon every year because I say, okay, New York's here, last big week of racing. I actually, it's actually those last couple of weeks in November, I can pretty much say a little bit of rest because almost everyone's done racing. I don't have 10 race tracking screens open on my computer on Sunday all day long, worrying about people. But it all starts, all the excitement starts, with Boston and this time of year, and it's exciting. And I always tell the story. A couple of years ago, I had to watch Boston on my computer in a Starbucks. And I'm getting up, walking around the Starbucks, cursing, and where's so and so, and what's going on with so. So now I don't go out in public anymore in Boston. The greatest disappointment as a coach, is when your athlete has a bad day, and I don't care what race it's at. The greatest disappointment you can have as a coach is when your athlete has a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad when your athlete has a bad day and it was nothing it was completely out of their control. Like what happened in the year at Boston when the temperatures went up to 90 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
The night before, I was actually talking to a coach in Chicago who, we're not the best of friends, but we have the same interests. And he called me up the night before, and he said, I don't know what it's going to be like for you tomorrow, but it's going to be misery for me. I said, yeah. I had like 8 people running there, and none of them were going to get anywhere near their goal times because of that heat.
Mm-hmm.
So we deal with that on this end, folks. We worry about you all when you're racing, and
yeah.
It's fun, it's exciting. It really is exciting. Your people get ready. Kelly's running her first marathon this week, and we just did her race plan. And I'm really, really excited for her. And I'll be watching her race, all on the computer all day as well. It doesn't matter to me if they're my Boston people or if they're running their first 5K. If there's a tracker, I'm on it. But this is an exciting time of year. Spring is here, racing season's here. It's great. I'll be up all night with you and Zion, worrying about you, saying, okay, she's supposed to be here now, and when you're 10 seconds overdue, I start pacing, biting my fingernails. It's true. I get people. There's Patty has pictures of me at races where you can see me, the fingers in the mouth. I don't know where are my people at. That's not be that way. I'm probably bad calf at all. If you need help those last 5 miles, I'll be out there running with you.
Well, and the hard thing about ultras is there's no chip like to check in with. It's like you
Oh.
just kind of have to like guess and wait.
You know, when David Murphy was running the first 100 that I trained him for, you know, we had a goal and we had a time goal, and it was, you know, for David, it was, you know, it was going to be a big PR, and it was my first crack at coaching him. And,
Hmm.
you know, he took a leap of faith because he wasn't a heart rate guy, and he went into this 4-month heart rate training program with me to get ready for his 100, um, and it was down in Arkansas. And I was up 24 hours. I watched that race for 24 because, you know, the 100 you only get the results. They're tracking every now and then. It would pop up. And so I stayed up the whole night watching him race, and he had a great race. You know, he had like an hour and a half PR and was 4th overall. But it was, you know, it was a long night. It was a long night. And
But
it'll be
you know, as stressful as it is watching my athletes race, like I do love it. But yeah, there's times when I'm sitting there going, they should have been in by now. Where are they?
Oh yeah, that's trust me. You get used. Yeah, you'll get used to that. Well, you don't get used to it. That's just it. And it's like, okay, well, our goal today was 3 hours 58 minutes, and it's 3 hours 58 minutes and 4 seconds. Where are you? You know, that's when it starts. Well, for me, it's about 4 seconds over their goal time. I start to go, oh my God, what happened? What happened? And then I've been to races where I missed them at the finish. Like, and I'm saying, like, well, geez, what the heck is going on? What the heck is going on? They get this tap on the shoulder. Coach, what are you doing? Ah, how'd you get by me? You know, so, a lot of weird things happen, but it's fun. You know, it's fun. You know, we're lucky. We get to experience the excitement every weekend with people who we've worked with and built relationships with, and get to see the excitement and share that excitement with them. I don't think there could be a better job than this.
Oh no, I love it.
Got anything else you want to throw in there, kiddo?
Nope. I think
Okay.
we covered a lot.
Okay, if anyone has any questions, you know, please shoot them to us, coach@prsfit.com. My number is 720-400-2131. Don't be shy. You can call it. Sherry Ann, I'll see you Wednesday night or Thursday morning very, very early.
Yep.
I get into Phoenix Wednesday night, so I'll probably see you Thursday morning on the way up to Zion. Everybody be healthy
Train smart.
and have fun. This is Coach Jeff.
This is Coach Sherry Ann.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Good night.